This nugget focuses on using Microsoft Project to set up a project. Microsoft Project is certainly not the only project scheduling software in the market today, but it is the most commonly used and is the software we will focus on in this particular nugget. So let's get in and start to use Microsoft Project. When Microsoft Project first launches, you are presented with a Getting Started guide, and it provides a series of recommendations on how you can go about getting started using Microsoft Project. And if we close that out, it goes on and again presents a specific guide for defining the project, defining the general working times, listing the tasks on the project, and so forth. So it's very much a gentle walk you through step-by-step process for developing project plans from scratch. And I welcome you to explore these options once you complete this nugget series. For this nugget, we're actually going to go in and do most of the work that wizard is going to walk you through by hand to give you a better understanding of Microsoft Project. So now we're in Microsoft Project. The first step is to set several of the options within Microsoft Project to be specific for what you need it to be effective as a project manager. To do that, we will go to the Tools menu option, and then we will go to the Options selection. Within Options, you will see there are many tabs available for you to set. Most of these tabs I will again suggest you explore on your own once you complete this nugget series, but a few of them I want to focus on. Specifically, the View, which is the default tab that comes up when you first launch Microsoft Project. And in View, we are able to define the default view that is used by Microsoft Project. It defaults to out of the package Gantt chart, and that is the view you would most commonly use. But as you see from this window, there are a large number of other views that you may select from based on your own unique requirements as a project manager. So you have a great deal of flexibility for how you customize, how you make project work specifically for you. The next component we want to look at is the calendar. In the Calendar tab, you're able to define when your week starts, because some organizations start payroll weeks or start accounting weeks on a different day of the week than Sunday. Allows you to manage when your week starts. Again, allows you to define specific patterns for when your fiscal year starts. Defines your working times. And most importantly, defines the number of working hours in a day in your organization. Whether your team works an 8-hour day, a 7.5-hour day, a 7.25-hour day, or whatever the appropriate time. Also the number of hours in a week, and allows you to specify a number of days in a month, whether you pick 20 to give you some latitude for vacation time, or whether you pick a more mathematical number of days in a month. These are all options that you need to work through and understand as you're starting to use Microsoft Project. I'll leave them at the standard 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, and 20 days per month. The next component we want to look at is the Calculate tab. The Calculate tab, the prime area I want to bring to your attention is the calculation mode of automatic versus manual. And basically what this selection is going to allow you to do is to control whether Microsoft Project recalculates all of the totals, all of the running fields on a dynamic basis as you make individual changes, or on a manual basis, and then you would come back into your options to calculate now to recalculate the values where appropriate. And this is really a matter of performance. For small projects, 1 and 200 lines long, you will probably see no performance degradation if you leave it at automatic. But if you start to see performance degradation, you may want to go in and change it to manual and then manually calculate your project totals as required. The most important tab within the options that you must set, because Microsoft Project does not have this set properly, in my humble opinion, for effective project management as the defaults shipped by the product. And that is this field right here, Default Task Type. When Microsoft Project is first loaded, it will set as default task type is fixed duration. As you see from this list box, there are 3 types of task types: fixed duration, fixed work, and fixed units. It's very important that you understand the distinction between each one of these types, And the best way for you to remember that is to not have me dictate to you what these are, but to realize within Microsoft itself we can go to Help and do a search on task types. So if I bring up Microsoft Project Help and ask what task types are, it's going to say these are the various task types and allows you to understand fixed, work, and duration. So if you go to Microsoft Help, which I have already loaded for us, and search on task type, you will get this dialog screen that explains the differences in the task types, and most importantly, we have this table that defines what happens if you revise units or the duration or the work, depending on whether you have defined your tasks as fixed units, fixed work, or fixed duration. It's critical that you understand these differences, but the shortcut answer is all work, all tasks created in Microsoft Project that you are going to effectively manage needs to be set as fixed work. In essence, that says the effort for this task, 16 hours, 24 hours, 36 hours, whatever the estimate for the task that you have defined in estimating is the actual work that will be required to complete the task. If you have 2 people on the task, it will be done twice as fast. If you have 4 people on the task, it will be done 4 times as fast. So the work is fixed, and the variability is the duration, and the variability for duration is based on the number of resources and the availability of resources for your project. So once you have set and saved your options, the next step in setting up Microsoft Project to be effective for you as a tool to manage projects is to actually set the working time for your project. So again, you go in through the Tools menu and we go to Change Working Time. In this option, we're presented with a standard project calendar. You have the options of having night shifts, 24-hour calendars. I will go ahead and focus purely on the standard project calendar, which actually is the standard that is inherited by other calendars as well. The main thing we want to do in here is to start to set our working hours. It is by default loaded with the working hours that we set, so the focus here needs to be set in vacation or holiday time. So July the 4th is a holiday. We're not going to be working on July the 4th, so we go in, we select that date in our calendar, and we change it to be non-working time. And now we can see the view that it is shaded and it is underlined, indicating that this is a specific non-working day that I have defined in my calendar. Microsoft Project does not by default set any statutory holidays. So we will go on and find our next statutory holiday, Labor Day, and we will set it as a non-working day. And we would go in and we would go on and we would continue to do Thanksgiving Day and Christmas and New Year's Day and the appropriate holidays that your organization will observe. While you're setting holidays, I would encourage you to go in and set the holidays for several years in advance. You may be planning a project that's only 6 months long, so you feel you're safe going in and only setting the holidays for the next 6 months. But after that project is finished, you're going to start another project. And after that project is finished, you're going to start another project. So again, I would encourage you go in when you first load Microsoft Project on your PC, go in and set the statutory holidays for 3 or 4 or 5 years hence, because you'll never remember to do it again, and you can get caught with embarrassing situations as I did once, where I didn't set my statutory holidays. I scheduled a steering committee meeting. I had senior VPs invited to the steering committee meeting, and it was on a statutory holiday, and about 4 days before the meeting was scheduled, I got a call from the admin assistant from one of the senior VPs that says, "Do you really expect this VP to come in on a holiday to participate in your steering committee meeting?" So again, avoid that embarrassment. Go in and set your statutory holidays well in advance. One final component that we need to set up in Microsoft Project before we're ready to start actually using it is to set up our project-specific details. So we go to our menu option, we go to Project, and we say Project Information. In Project Information, we're simply going to define what our project start date is going to be, By default, it selects today's date. So you know this nugget was recorded on April the 20th. Project planning will take a period of time. So let's assume we don't believe the project is going to start until the 9th of May. You can go in and set your project start date to be the 9th of May. You could set the finish date if that is mandatory, but in most instances you will let Microsoft Project calculate the finish date for you based on the actual effort that is going to be consumed on the project. Where needed, you can go in and maintain the current date. But the primary thing we need to focus on is setting the start date. Click OK, and now we're ready to start defining our project in Microsoft Project. There are 4 main steps involved with creating a project plan in Microsoft Project. Defining the work breakdown structure, defining the resources that are going to work, assigning the resources to the work breakdown structure, and assigning the estimates for the resources. Of the first of those 2, defining the work breakdown structure and defining the resources, there is no proper starting point. You can define resources and tasks simultaneously. You can define all resources, or you can define all tasks. For the purpose of this demonstration, we're going to go through and define our tasks, our work breakdown structure first, then go through and define our resources, and then finally assign the resources to the tasks, and then assign the estimates to the task. So to create our work breakdown structure, we simply go to the task name field in Microsoft Project, and we begin to create our plan. So I'm going to call my plan simply Plan. I hit Enter, and a line has been created in Microsoft Project. Now I'm going to begin to give our plan some structure. So I'm going to create my first activity. By default, Microsoft will assign all tasks at the same level as the predecessor. So plan was defined at the outmost level of indentation. So first activity is defined at the same level of indentation. We actually want to apply groupings to our Microsoft Project plan. So we go to first activity, we go to the indent button, and we ask it to indent. So now at this point in time, we've seen some changes. We're seeing plan has become bold, and we're seeing the Gantt view over here in our calendar area changing, so it's showing this black line with the arrows indicating this is a summary task that starts at this point in time and finishes at this point in time, where at this moment the activity is still defined to be a detailed task where the blue shaded box indicates work is going to be done. But we'll change that here real fast. So now we're going to create our first, sorry for my typing, the first task in our plan. Again, by default, it is set to the same level of indentation, but again, we want to do more indentation, so we go up and we indent, and now our first task is assigned, and both the activity and the plan are indicated as summary tasks with the bolding and the graphical view in the Gantt chart. We will create another task, and we will be very imaginative again and call it second task. And we could create third, fourth, fifth tasks as appropriate for our project plan. I'm going to create another activity at this point in time. And because, again, by default, it goes to the same level of indentation, I now need to outdent that activity. So I will go to the activity, and I will go to my outdent button and bring it back to the same level of summary as my activity groups. And I will continue to key in more tasks. Again, defaults to the same level of indentation. I must indent it, and I will create one more task. And there we have our rudimentary work breakdown structure created in Microsoft Project. The next step is to define the resources that are going to work on our project. To define resources, we go to View, and we will go to a view called Resource Sheet. And in the Resource Sheet, we can begin to create our resources. So we're going to create a resource called Project Manager, and we're going to create a resource called Developer. When we create our resources, Microsoft Project does some auto-filling in for us. It will create the initials field based on the first character of the name, and we probably want to change that to be PM, and developer probably can leave just as D. The key focus here is the max units. This is saying the project manager is available to work on the project 100% of the time. 8 hours a day, 40 days a week, 40 hours a week. As we've discussed in previous nuggets, that is not a realistic resource loading, so we will need to change that. We're going to say our resources are available to work on our project a maximum of 80% of the time, leaving other time available for our resources to work on other duties as assigned. For the purpose of this small demonstration project, I'm only going to create 2 resources. In a larger project, you would most likely create more resources than that. So now we're in the resource sheet, and we have created our resources. I'm going to change my view back again, and I'm going to go back to my Gantt view. And if we look at the view options quickly, you see we have a number of options available. We have a calendar view, we have a Gantt view, a network diagram, a task usage, and so on. You can see there's many views available. As a matter of fact, there's even more views available. These are simply predefined views presenting the information contained in Microsoft Project based on standard formats, standard styles that Microsoft believes you would use as a project manager, and these views are pretty useful as is. The 2 most common views you're going to use, we've already seen: the Gantt view, which we're going back to, and the resource sheet view, which we are just leaving. If we go back to our Gantt view, we have the view of our project we just saw. Now it's time to begin to assign our resources to our project plan. So we go to the first task in our project. We only assign resources to the detailed tasks, not to the summary groups. So we go to our first task, and we go to our Assign Resource button. So it's right here. It's the button that has the picture of 2 people on it, and it's Assign Resources. So if we click on that, we get this pop-up window that says, what resource do you want to assign to this task? Do you want to assign the developer? Do you want to assign the project manager? For the sake of discussion, I'm going to assign the project manager to that task and click Assign. You'll notice they've been assigned, and the max availability is 80%. If I move this window aside, we can see that represented in our Gantt view as well. There's the project manager assigned for 80% utilization. Let's go on and assign the project manager to the second task as well. So I can leave this window active, go to my second task, and click Assign. Go down to my third task. We're going to have a busy project manager here. We're going to assign the project manager to the third task as well. And only the fourth task is going to be assigned to the developer. So we go to the fourth task. We click on the developer this time. We click Assign. And now we have done full resource assignment to all of our tasks in our work breakdown structure, so we can close down this window. Here's the results we're now seeing. Project Manager is assigned to the first 3 tasks, and the 4th task has been assigned to the developer. You will note Microsoft Project does not automatically, we can ask it to, but it does not automatically schedule the work based on resource assignments. And we will get to the scheduling options in just a few minutes in this nugget. So at this point, we've done the first 3 of the 4 tasks associated with creating our project plan. We developed our work breakdown structure, we added our resources to the Microsoft project plan, and then we assigned the resources to specific task elements. Our last step is to add the estimates to Microsoft project so we can define the work that is required to complete the tasks. This is an area where the standard view in Microsoft Project does not support project management as defined in this nugget. Project management is defined in the PMBOK. So we need to do a little bit of customization to our Gantt view. To customize our Gantt view, we go up to this title area and we do a right mouse click and we get an option to insert a column. If we go to Insert Column and click on that, we get the ability to define a new column to our Gantt view. We're not defining a new data item to Microsoft Project. The data item already exists, and as you can see from this list, there's a large number, a very large number of data items that are predefined and maintained by Microsoft Project. You as a project manager can control what information is displayed within your views of Microsoft Project. So we're going down and we're looking for the data field, the column called Work. So if we click on Work and ask Microsoft to enter it into our Gantt view, we're now seeing the Work column. Microsoft did a little calculation for us. By default, when we entered the tasks, it had an estimated duration of a day. Because our project manager is only available 80% of the time, it did some calculations for us and said it's going to take 6.4 hours to complete that task. This is where we need to enter our actual estimates for our task. So based on estimating, we believe that this task is going to take 24 hours worth of effort to complete. Now you'll see that the blue line has been increased and is now representing the effort that's going to be required to complete that task. So we will do the same for second task. Second task is going to take 30 hours of effort. Whoops, watch my typing. 30 hours of effort to complete. The fourth task is a long one. It's going to take us 45 hours of effort to complete. And finally, our fourth task by our developer is going to take 36 hours to complete. So now we have effectively completed the development of our Microsoft Project plan. We have the work breakdown structure, we've defined the resources, we've assigned the resources to a task, and we've assigned the detailed estimates to each element in our work breakdown structure. So although our work breakdown structure is complete, it doesn't look very realistic at this viewpoint. We have the project manager doing 3 things at the same time. We have the developer doing work in parallel. It just doesn't look like this is a project we really want to manage. And in fact, if we were to go back to our view and do a view on resource usage, another view as defined by Microsoft Project, we look at the resource usage and we have a look at our project manager. We're seeing we have a very overworked project manager. We're not very happy. We're working 19.2 hours every day. That's certainly not a position we want to be in, and that's again because Microsoft Project does not by default reschedule tasks as we're entering information. So if we go back to our Gantt view and ask Microsoft Project to do some auto leveling for us, we will see a very different presentation. So if we go to Tools and we ask it to level resources, the going in options from Microsoft Project for leveling resources is probably very adequate. I'm not going to go through and discuss these. And we simply ask Microsoft Project to level now. Now we're seeing a very different view. Now we're seeing work spread out. We're seeing Microsoft is asking it to do task 3 first, and in parallel the fourth task is happening at the same time, and that's because the project manager is working 80% availability to complete that task, but at the same time the developer is free to work, so the work is being assigned appropriately. It's then asking us to do the second task, and then finally asking us to do the first task. So the results again are probably not exactly what we want to have happen, and as a matter of fact may appear to be very strange on first blush. Why did Microsoft Project level the resources this way? It has an algorithm built into it that says, I'm going to try to get the hardest work, and by definition it assumes the hardest work is the work that has the most effort. I'm going to try to get the hardest work done first. So it looked at the project manager and said the hardest thing you need to do is this third task. It has 45 hours of estimate on it, so therefore I'm going to schedule that first, get it out of the way, so we can go on and do other project tasks. And then I'm going to look for your next hardest piece of work, which is this one at 30 hours, and then finally the remaining task at 24 hours. So that's why it did this rather unique approach to scheduling. And it did the same for our developer, where the developer only had the single task, so it simply allowed the developer to start working on that first task right away on our project. If we at this point were to go back to our resource usage sheet and have a look at it again, we see our resource usage is much more reasonable. Here our project manager is working 6.4 hours a day, which is 80% of 8 hours a day, consistently throughout our project. So the work assignments are very good. Here we actually see completing the third task with 0.2 hours on the Wednesday, and it allows us to start working on the second task. So it does a very good job of managing resource availability, resource utilization, but obviously back at the Gantt view doesn't produce quite the results that we're looking for in terms of our project schedule. So the next step to create a project plan that looks more reasonable is start to add dependencies between our tasks. To add a dependency in Microsoft Project, you go to the first task, and the order is important. The first task is the predecessor. You do a shift and select the second task, the successor. So now we have two tasks selected, and we go to this icon that looks like a chain, which is Link Tasks, and we click on that, and we're going to link our tasks together. We then say the second task is the predecessor to the third task, and we select and link it together. Sorry, I did that wrong. Task, link it together, and then finally the second task is the predecessor to the fourth task, and we link that together. And at this moment in time, something really strange seems to have happened to our Microsoft Project Plan. All of our tasks have disappeared, and if we scroll over, instead of having our project starting on the 9th of May, which it had been, it looks like everything is now starting over on the 22nd of May. Not to worry. Again, we'll go in, we'll ask Microsoft Project to level our resources for us. We go into Level Resources, say Level Now, and it will pull the work back based on the dependencies, and now we're seeing a project plan that looks much more reasonable to us. Here we have the first task happening first, followed directly behind by the second task, followed directly behind by the third task, and the fourth task happening in parallel because the third task is being delivered by our project manager and the fourth task is being delivered by our developer. So now we have a truly workable project plan. To recap what we've done, first thing we did was we created the work breakdown structure in Microsoft Project. To do that, we simply entered the tasks with the proper level of indenting and outdenting required to support our consolidation and summary information. We then created the resources that are going to be assigned to our project, and then we assigned the individual resources to the tasks. At that point in time, we were ready to enter the actual estimates for the work into the plan. In order to add the estimates, we needed to add an extra column to our Gantt view. So we did a right mouse click, insert column, and select work. And I focus on this particular component of how we got that work column in there because that is not available in the standard view from Microsoft Project. So you need to understand that you do the right mouse click, you do an insert column, you select the new column you want, which will be work, and you enter it into your Microsoft Project Gantt view. Once we had that in place, when we tried leveling our project plan, we got some unrealistic results. So then we went in and we added the appropriate dependencies to ensure that the work was being done in the order that we required the project to be delivered. Used the Level Now functionality, creating a project plan that had the results that we wanted, creating a project plan that had proper resource utilization. So again, we see our project manager is working consistently 6.4 hours a day on the right tasks in the right schedule. So at this point in time, we have a project plan that we're happy with. We would go in, we would save the plan, and most importantly, we would go in and we would set the baseline for the plan. Setting the project baseline is done through Tools, Tracking, and Save Baseline. Saving a baseline saves all of the information, the start dates, the resource assignments, the work estimates, into a space in Microsoft Project that is now protected, read-only, to allow you to do comparisons against original plan, i.e. the baseline, as you're delivering the project. So we go Save Baseline, and we want to save the entire project. We click OK, and now we have all of the baseline information saved, and we will be reviewing how we use this baseline information in a future nugget where we talk about using Microsoft Project to manage a project. At this point in time, we're simply creating the project. When the project is created and we're happy with the results, we save the baseline, and we are effectively done creating our Microsoft Project plan. Our project plan is now complete. The baseline has been saved, but I want to review for the remainder of this nugget a few more features and functions of Microsoft Project that you may need to use or may want to use as you're developing your project plan. The first of these is removing of links that were created by accident. So here we have the link between the second task and the fourth task, and we're saying that's not really the link that I want. I really want the link to be between the third task and the fourth task, so we do that in 2 steps. First we go to fourth task and we remove the existing link. That's done to this icon, Unlink Tasks. We click on that and we see the link has been removed and it has rescheduled the task, because there are no other dependencies, back to the start of the project. So again, we will go to the predecessor task, go to the successor task, and recreate a new link there, which will push that task out and now have that task 4 as a predecessor to task number 3. As you're going through and developing your work breakdown structure, you may have missed a task on your original data entry. If you need to insert a new task into your project, you simply go to the following line, hit the Insert button on your keyboard, and a blank line will be created in your Microsoft Project Plan itself, and you can say this is an added task. When we create that task, you will note that it did automatic linking of the dependency. It said, okay, third task was linked to fourth task. The project manager has added a new task in the middle, so I am going to assume that that task should also be part of the same dependency chain. If that's true, you can leave it as is, or if it's not true, again, you can go to that task and start removing links as appropriate. Very similar to the approach for adding tasks. If you have a task in your work breakdown structure that is no longer required, again, you would simply go to that task in your project plan. You would push the delete button on your keyboard. The task is removed, and again, Microsoft Project will do any appropriate tidying up of the links. It recognized that there was a link between the third task and the removed task, and the removed task and the fourth task, so it tidied up the links and relinked appropriately within the project plan. Up to this point in time, we've been doing most of our work in this view. In the Gantt view, we created our work breakdown structure, we did our resource assignment, we did our estimating, we did our dependencies. A lot of the same work can be done in other views in Microsoft Project. One of the more common other approaches for doing work breakdown structure maintenance is within the detailed tabs related to a task. So if we double click on a task, we get a task information pop-up that has most of the information we've already been maintaining. So the general tab has the task name. We can modify it here. It has the duration. Percent complete we'll discuss in the next Microsoft Project Nugget. We have a predecessor tab, which is showing our relationship with our predecessor. It's related to the third task. It's a finish start relationship, and the lag is 0. So if you need to do additional maintenance on the predecessor successor relationships, you do it here on the predecessor tab. We look at the resource tab. Again, we see the resource assignment, the max units available. We have an advanced tab where we're starting to look at things like constraint types, the task type, fixed units. Remember, proper project management as defined by the PMBOK defines all tasks should be of fixed units, but if you have a unique specification in your project, a unique requirement, you can, on a task by task basis, go in and maintain that information on an as required basis. You have a notes field where you can say additional and you actually can even define custom fields for your specific task on your project. So again, same information that we've been maintaining here in the Gantt view is available with other views or available through the Detailed Task tab itself. You'll notice we now have a yellow Notes field available in our information column. That comes from our Notes field, and if we hover over that, that information is made available to anyone viewing the project plan. One final discussion on Microsoft Project for this nugget is how to change the presentation. We've already seen how we can add columns through the right mouse add. We can do the same to remove columns. If we don't care about the duration column, we can go to the title field, go in and hide the column. We're not removing the duration information, we're simply not displaying it on this current Gantt view. Because this is a small project, we can very effectively manage our level of detail presentation by simply clicking on the pluses and minuses and expanding and collapsing our tree as appropriate. For larger projects where we have dozens to hundreds of tasks and summary activities in our project, we can use the show function to allow us to better manage and better present our view. So we can do automatic collapsing and expansion of the tree. If we go to outline level 1, obviously it's going to collapse our entire tree down to outline level 1. Outline level 2 is going to take it to the second level of detail. And finally, outline level 3 or beyond is going to show us all of the project information. One final area you may want to do customization is in the Gantt presentation itself. The default we're seeing here is it's showing the days of the week. If we want to present our project information at a higher level of detail, we would again go to the title area here, do a right mouse click, and select time scale. And within time scale, we can go to our bottom tier, and we say we don't want to show it in days. We want our bottom tier to show in, if you were really detailed focus, in minutes or hours. We're going to change our bottom tier to show in weeks, and we're going to change the label to say the label should be of this format. And again, you can change some of the other parameters. We will go to our middle layer. It was set at weeks. We now want to show it as months. And we're going to say we don't want to show it as specific calendar months. We're doing a very generic project plan. We simply want to show it as month 1, month 2 from the start of the project. So we've done a fair degree of customization for our view. If we click OK, we can see the Gantt view has rescaled. We're now seeing our entire project plan in this one screen. And we did that again by maintaining our level of detail in our Gantt presentation. This completes our nugget on using Microsoft Project to develop a project plan. We developed the preliminary work breakdown structure. We developed the resources that's going to work on our project. We assigned the resources to specific tasks. We created the estimates or added the estimates to our work breakdown structure. We leveled our project. We added dependencies, and we've managed and reiterated and done the appropriate number of revisions and rework for our project plan till we got it to the point that we had a project we believed in, that we were happy with the results. We did a save to the baseline, and we have our go-forward project plan that we're going to use to deliver and manage our project against. This concludes our nugget on using Microsoft Project to develop a project plan. I hope this video has been informative for you, and thank you very much.